So I am back to continue working on this coiled vessel, and I did finish all the cordage and it is absolutely gorgeous. I love it. However, I will caution anybody who's thinking about doing this is a kind of a nylon polyester material, and while I love the frays, these little flyaway bits from the frayed edges really made making cordage difficult because it wasn't like silk that I could easily pull it off. It would just bring long strings, and then every time I twisted it would make knots. So I don't recommend this fabric. In the future I will stick with using cotton or linen or anything that isn't polyester. But it's done. I have a great big ball of cordage to go up the sides, and this is my bottom that I stopped at. I left some of this because I started thinking, I have no idea how far this will go. Maybe somebody knows, but I think it really depends on how big your cordage is, as to how tall you're going to be able to get your vessel and how tight you pull your stitches. So if you pull them tighter, it's not going to be as big. If you leave them loose, you're going to maybe have some gaps. So I'm not going to worry. I'm not like trying to make it a certain size. It's just going to be what it's going to be, and that's okay. And I have, now there are things you could do. I could go along and I might, as I'm stitching, I might end up cutting some of these little edges down. But mostly I think as I'm stitching, they're going to get stitched into the coils, so I'm not worried about it. But I did remember that there was another way that you could do your joins on cordage if you wanted to, that you might like better. So here's a little sample with 2 pieces of fabric. And what you're going to do is you're just going to make a little slit in the fabric. And you could do this, just as you're making your cordage. You could do this with your fabric scraps. And then what you're doing is you're just going to slide it through the slit and pull it through. And then you have your join. And again, for me, I would not worry as I was making the cordage. I wouldn't worry about things sticking out. I would cut them then, as I was stitching them. But you could come along and just cut them as you go, and then you've got your long string. Now, one of the other things that I learned or remembered, because it had been a while since I'd done cordage, I thought it would be really great for me to be able to cut these long strips so I wouldn't have to make as many joins. So I had some strips of this fabric that were probably, 3 feet long. That was way too long because every time you're twisting down here on the other length, it was twisting some more, and that meant I had to stop and untwist it. So what I finally, it was like, oh, you know what, just cut them smaller. So I made my lengths about 12 to no more than 18 inches. 12 inches was great. I don't mind doing joins. It was very easy for me to zip along like that. So it's something to keep in mind. Now, I decided I could make this bigger, the bottom bigger. This is about, I think I decided 7 inches. What is this? Yeah, this is about 7 inches across. That doesn't mean that my basket's only going to be 7 inches because I can come out more. I can go in. I can shape it with my stitches. But I saved aside some of this, and if I made cordage at this thing, at this width, it's going to be a little thicker. So I'm thinking I might see if I can rip this in half and make cordage, or I might just make something like this because I think it'll be fun to mix it up as I'm making the coils. I might have like a band of this other color. I've also got some of this that I thought might be fun to weave into it, but I've gone back and forth. I really wanted this to be kind of like the seashore, and then I envisioned hanging shells and things from it, which I still might do. But what that meant to me is that I really wanted the sides to be blue. I wanted to use this blue mostly on the sides. What I ran into troubles with is finding the right thread, because I didn't want the accent. I wanted things to just kind of blend in, and I did not have the right blues at all. I ordered a bunch of blues, and this is the one that I like the best. It's a crochet cotton, so it's nice and strong. However, this is back ordered and maybe I'll get it in another couple weeks. And the thing about coiling, it uses a lot of thread. Just to do this base, I used almost 2 full cones of this. So, you know, I don't know. I'm going to end up probably having to use a variety of blues. This blue I love with it. I guess I didn't add it to my little list of what colors go with what, so I can't find anything close to it. This one's pretty good. I like it, and I did order more of it, but it hasn't been delivered yet, so who knows. Or I could go like a dark navy, and it would be an accent. But using embroidery floss, I wanted, I don't know, I just wanted something a little stronger. And I don't really like that dark. It's really hard. It's a hard decision. So I guess I'm just going to have a mix of colors and try to be okay with that. I also looked at using something that had some greens in it because that did look like the ocean. So I don't know. I could do that, and that would just add a little bit more variety to it, and it would look good with this as well. And I can order some more of that. It's very frustrating for a recovering perfectionist to not be able to reach out and find exactly what they want. And I was trying to use what I already had on hand. Now, there's nothing wrong with using an accent color. You know, I could use white, but it wasn't the look I was going for. And because I'm not super experienced at doing this, the stitches might be less precise. They were really going to show up. It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter because I tell you guys, you know, let's just do it for the process. But, you know, I had a vision. I wanted to use the blues, so I'm going to use the blues. So now to come up the sides, it's no different than when you're making the bottom. It's just instead of continuing to go on the outside, now you're going to go up, and you'll go up a few rows, and then I can decide. Now the other issue, potential issue, is will this cordage be too heavy for this bottom because this bottom's not super heavy since I haven't wrapped it in rope? I don't know. So we will find out as we go, but my thought is if it turns out that it's too heavy, I can use some of my knots and go around the base because I kind of like that idea anyways. Ooh, maybe I might just do 1 row like that just to start because it's kind of cool and it's the same fabric as this. But I figured afterwards I could always add something at the bottom for a base. And I even played around with the idea of doing a great big knotted base. But again, that's something I can go back in and add later, trying to, again, keep my idea of the sea, and I'm thinking we have the blue, and then I will have the white at the top, so it's like the frothy waves. You know, I could do something that's more like a sandy beach at the bottom. It's hard. You just need to make a decision and go with it. So what I've got here is that last little bit that's left here. Oh, and then the other thing you have to decide, okay, I've reached this point. Now, this is how I've been working it at the top, and it looks much nicer than at the bottom. So, since I know it's going to be a kind of tall vessel, I'm thinking that now this becomes the bottom, and this is going to become the top. So I want to finish this off. And one thing you can do on the bottoms, you could, you know, like say, get ahead of the game and make a few bottoms in different sizes so they would be ready. I'm going backwards here a little bit because I really want to make this one tied in and I want to not have to rethread my needle. So I'm thinking, because I'm going to move to some different materials on some different baskets, I'm going to probably grab some neutral colors and make some coiled bases in some different colors, and they'll be all ready to go. Now, if you were going to use just a variety or a whole bunch of fabric or cordage that you already had made up, you know, you would just keep going and raising up, which is what I've done with the other ones. But this one I want to flip over because I really like the way this side looks. So let's just get this attached. Whoops. Oh, almost pulled it through. Okay. And you could go ahead and, you know, cut that down to a taper if it really bothered you. It doesn't bother me because you're not going to see it by the time I get the rest of the stuff done. All right. let's see here. Okay, and I've got threads here to cut off. Get the better scissors. Saving all my little threads because that's future cordage, right? All right, so now that's my inside. And I'm not going to worry about that. And now it's time to start adding the cordage, which is going to be cool. So now I will cut this off. This was my, my start of my cordage is in the center, and then when I got to the end, I just tied a knot to finish it since I knew that I would be stitching it. So let's start with what? Let's start with, I guess, with this. Oh, didn't bring a needle threader with me. Let's cross our fingers. No, I'm not going to get that lucky, right? Oh, maybe. There we go. All right. So the one thing about coiling is it uses a lot of thread, like I said. So think about that as you're starting a project. If it's going to, maybe it won't matter to you. If it doesn't matter to you, you don't have to worry about it. Or you could just use a nice neutral color. Sometimes I use just some warping threads from weaving, because you can get a big cone of that for like $10, $12. It's not bad. And then you've got a whole lot of it in the same color. Some people like to use wax thread, although I was reading something recently where they said the color was coming off. I haven't done any with wax thread, but I can see where that might make it easier. So now I'm just going to come on top of my existing coil, and first I want to hide my knot in there. And this is nothing any different than what I've already done. It's just I'm going up instead of around. And again, it's kind of fiddly when you first get started. It's not a big deal. And I won't show you, show me going the whole way up the sides. I just kind of wanted to get it started and show you guys some ideas that I had, because then I'm going to play with some things going forward, and we'll see, I'll come back when the basket's done. Basket, vessel, same difference, right? And you just sort of start building up. So I've had a few thoughts while I was working on this, and it always goes back to having the ideas in my head never quite come out the way I plan them, because I'm not normally a planner. So doing something new and trying to figure out where I want to land, it's always hard. It's hard for me. And to be honest, I quit a lot. I don't quit as much as I did when I was younger, but I do quit a lot of things because it's like, well, I can't figure it out. I'm just going to stop. I'm going to give up. And that's really silly. It's very silly. And I want to not quit as much. I was very close to quitting when the cordage was giving me trouble and trying to find a color that, because if I pulled the wrong color, this just didn't look right for me. Now, it might be right for somebody else. It was just one of those, if I'm not happy with the combinations of things that I'm working on, well, that's no good. Because you don't want to be working on something and the whole time you're working on it go, ugh, I can't believe I'm still working on this thing, because that's just frustrating. So I hope that everybody is working hard on something that's making them happy. And if you're not, then why are you doing it, right? That's my question. Why are you doing it? I missed my little loop there. Go back in. Now, if you're really good at making your coils, you can switch over to a blunt needle so you don't poke yourself all the time when you're doing this, which is maybe something I should be doing. So see how now I'm just coming up the edges. That's all it is I'm just going to build this around and around, and we'll just see how far it goes. And then at some point I'm going to add this color, And at some point, perhaps I will add this. And I'm going to try a few other little things that I have seen. I do have a board over on Pinterest where I have been gathering some beautiful vessels. Okay, now here we come up to one of my knots in my joins. And I'll show you. I'm just going to try and tuck it in there. Because honestly, by the time the whole sides get built, you're not going to notice where there's the little lumps. Now, when you do the vessels that are covered in fabric, like rope covered fabric, or if you take your, if you don't have rope, you can certainly just take a chunk of fabric like this and then wrap it and make your coils that way. You're going to get something that's a lot more precise. And originally, when I first started playing with this idea, I really thought that's what I was going to do. I even bought some rope, and I realized it was, for me, just for me personally, it was too precise. So I decided, no, we're going to go a different way. And I still might do one of the other ones. Okay, so this tail is a little long. I'm just going to come along. Would it have been easier if I did it while I was doing the cordage? Maybe, except that when you're doing cordage and you're in that motion, you don't want to stop. And if you feel like you haven't quite gone up enough, then you just start kind of tweaking your rolls as you're doing that. And that's all you're going to do, is you're just going to keep going along like that. So I guess I will be back when I've got even more of my coils done and show you what it all looks like. All right, thanks for watching.